Hello, and welcome back to the Authentic Creative, expanding our capacity to feel good. I'm just delighted to be here. I'm taking a collective sigh with you listeners and Shannon. Thank you for arriving here because this is actually Shannon's third time, believe it or not, being on the Authentic Creative. She's graced us on two of our panels. Recently, we had a beautiful The Light Within Embodying Compassionate Leadership panel. Previously, we had what was the other panel called? I can't even remember right now. But it was all about light and healing, love and leadership and creativity and authenticity, as it always is. And so I just want to get to know Shannon a little better. I have only gotten to know you, Shannon, through our little 5 minute moments on the panels. And one of my dearest, oldest, closest friends, Janine Barris, aka Janine Wolf, connected us, and I'm so grateful. I used to live in LA. I think that's where you are.
Yeah, that's where I am now. Yes.
And I just would love to start with so everyone can get to know you as I get to know you. Where did you grow up? What was your first, initial years of your life like? And maybe we can take it in like little chunks, like 5 or 10 year chunks. You could just take us
Sure.
through a little bit of who is Shannon? Where did she start? And then we'll get into your purpose and all the things that you practice now and what you bring into the world so beautifully.
Well, thank you so much, Siri, for having me and for creating this beautiful sacred space to connect. And I'm also so happy to get to know you deeper. So I grew up in Michigan,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, I was born in Korea. And when I was born, I was what my adopted father told me is that I was found in a small village near Seoul, Korea, when I was 6 months old, and I was brought to the orphanage in Seoul, where I lived for almost a year. And then I was adopted and came to the United States when I was about a year and a half old. So when I came to the United States, the parents didn't have to go to the country to meet the baby. They would just put the babies on the plane. And so all the babies would come together and then they would arrive. So I went from Seoul, Korea, and then I landed in Detroit, Michigan. And when I arrived in Detroit as a baby, about a year and a half old, I had a number pinned on me. And that's how all the adoption agencies would find the baby. So
Oh
that
my
was
gosh.
my arrival.
That is so special and unique and fascinating to me. I've got complete head chills hearing you share about this. And I'm just so curious how your origins have informed. I mean, I'm sure you're going to keep going with your story, but how your origins have informed your life. And I mean, obviously, self love tea, right? Like, our mission is so much about our purpose in the world is to transform your soul. This is my belief. My belief is your soul came in, Shannon, in this explicitly specific way because you're meant to teach people about self love.
Yes, I definitely feel that. So my journey, so just to kind of start with the first question you asked is how did that origin, create, spark so much of my journey? And it's interesting because I think about it all the time, because I don't know, my family of origin. And I've done some natal regression and I've done a lot of healing work around it. And so I kind of have an idea based on the information that my body gives me
Yeah,
about what that was probably like.
yeah,
And kind of what I arrived on is that I was very, very loved, and that for whatever reason, my origin family just wasn't in a position to keep me.
yeah.
So they, with love, brought me somewhere where I could be found and then adopted. That being said, growing up for those pre-verbal somatic years in an orphanage, for the first like however, 6 months to a year and whatever happened before that, I think about those patterns often because they run so deep, and it's
Yeah.
part of what really lights me up in my work is really helping people repattern their energy because,
Mm,
there's a lot of patterns of them. I can imagine being in an orphanage. You're not getting your needs met when you need them. And so you have a period of time of not getting your needs met and being disconnected. And
mm,
then you have a period of time of being really connected and getting all of your needs met, and then kind of going back. So this kind of like feast or famine type of pattern, and not with food necessarily, but with connection, with
yeah.
abundance,
Yeah.
with love, with
Yeah.
when is it okay to have my needs met? So, I've seen in my life these deeper grooves of different patterns that get created when we're in a situation that, maybe every single need isn't being met at the time that we need it. So it's very interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
I think about those a lot. And I think part of my gift is that it's really easy for me to read energy, to see patterns, to see dynamics. For some reason, I just have a really inherent knowing about that. And I think it's because I put so much time in my own life putting those things together for myself. So
Got it.
how all those dynamics, and then with the education of, I was a hairstylist for 20 years. So I was really
I love
reading
it.
energy, connecting with people. I am certified as a hypnotherapist. So kind of going deeper into those patterns in those neural pathways into the
Yeah.
mind. And then I also have education in somatics. So really all
Mm,
seeing how that patterning connects in the body. So that kind of bigger circle of how everything connects. And so when I was growing up, when I came to Michigan, it was pretty tumultuous.
mm,
And I won't say it's because I wasn't loved. I was definitely loved. I think that my adopted family that I was growing up with, they had a lot of unhealed wounds,
mm.
like many people in
Yes. Yes.
days. I mean, these all of these lessons of psychology and everything that's coming in. It's new in the past few decades. It wasn't really
Yes.
happening when I was a
That's right.
baby.
That's
So they were dealing with just kind of trying to keep on top of their own lives
right.
and really not knowing how to manage a lot of their lives. So they were living really unconsciously.
Did you have siblings in that family?
I had an adopted brother as well. I have an adopted brother. We don't talk, but yes, I have an adopted brother. So my my adopted mother, my parents got divorced when I was 10. And
Okay.
after when my parents got divorced, I never saw her again. The court just, I guess the courts, like I was pretty young, so I didn't have a big say in it, but the courts felt like she wasn't really a safe mother to be around.
Oh,
And, that landed really true with me, even as a child.
okay.
She was struggling with her own mental health and I
Okay.
think some addictions. And so we had one of those environments growing up where I think many people do, whether, where I didn't feel safe.
Mm,
I was always reading the room,
yes.
reading the adults, trying to figure out what was going on behind the scenes, just out of survival, so that I could figure out like how small should I be? How invisible should I be?
Mm.
Am I safe in my body? Where do I need to be in the room to be safe? And
Hyper vigilance. Yes.
hyper vigilance, yes. And I've also seen some of those patterns translate into, my life now, where, now that I am in a different life, I am safe. And I am still reading the room and I am still looking for the exits and I am still noticing subtle shifts. I'm still playing small in some ways. Are there times to be invisible? And so it's just really interesting how we see all these things flow through. And I am really having a deep awareness about how I can daily reprogram those things. And it is a daily practice. It
Yes.
doesn't just happen and then all of a sudden I got it and I never, it's daily work. It's tending to that garden and really being conscious about how are these affecting my life, because they're going to affect my life forever. They may not go away, but with healing and awareness, I can neutralize them to the point where I can have choices around how to react instead of just, or respond instead of just reacting out of, autopilot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm tearing up here because I just feel your story, and it's so the empath's story and the hypervigilance. I relate to it, and I think so many people do. And the orphan archetype is really within us all. You've lived it for real. And I had a mom that I kind of she was adopted, and then she kind of felt that she was adopting me. And you know, there's something there's a reason why all these movies, like Disney movies, have these children that are orphans, because there's something very core of that abandonment wound that intrinsically, as animals, are we all are connected and understand it. You've obviously needed to understand it on like a deeper level, and it's informed so much compassion, so much empathy, so much purpose, so much mission in your life. Because, like you said, this daily practice of daily work and rewiring and healing your system is now informing communities. Specifically, is it just women and men, communities that you're teaching? How can we love ourselves deeper? How can we rewire? How can we repattern? Tell me more about, as you know, we got to about 10 years old, right? Tell me more.
So after that, I, lived with my dad, and my dad was a very, very good man, but also like emotionally disconnected. And I think really trying to survive his own life. My dad was the son of, I think he had maybe like 12 or 13 brothers and sisters. And both of his parents were alcoholics. This is my adopted father. Both
Yeah.
parents were alcoholics. And so at a very young age, all of the children were scattered into foster care. And this is probably in the 1940s in America. So
Uh-huh.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like. And I think he went to a few different homes until he found one where he felt safe. He had went to school until he was in eighth grade, and then worked to support himself, and then fought twice in the Korean War. And I was adopted from Korea, so maybe him being in the Korean War was a way to, I don't know, maybe he felt some kind of connection. But it's really interesting because our relationship was really bookended by, he was really there for me at the beginning of my life and brought me into this country and gave me a life. And throughout our lives together, we had a very difficult time. He
Mhm.
was very strict. He was really disconnected from me. I was really brought up in a home where children were kind of seen but not heard. So I felt like my voice wasn't heard. I didn't feel important. I was inherently loved, but I really struggled with feeling like I was loved because I didn't feel like I was being seen or understood.
Yeah.
So, we had a lot of disconnection and confusion and misunderstanding through our lives. That being said, at the end of his life, when I knew, of course, he was going to pass at some point, and I had, done a lot of healing. My entire life since I was about 15 years old was like trying to understand, like, what is happening? Why is this happening? How can I feel better? How can I at least get enough understanding of what's happening so that I can feel better, but also maybe the adults around me can have better relationships, which selfishly meant that I could have a better life. So that was so much, I think, the deep driving purpose of me wanting to have tools to heal, kind of understand, expand, get more conscious. Without realizing it, that was the beginning of my journey into self love. So,
You were taking the PhD course from the beginning. And
yes.
and that's the other thing about your soul coming in, is you were like, I'll take this highest level course on self-love. I think that that's actually you being quite ambitious, and it's amazing how far, like, because I experience you now, here in this present moment, as highly evolved, highly loving, highly conscious, incredibly intelligent, emotionally intelligent, a leader, all of the things that, you've overcome. It's incredible.
Thank you. Well, I've really built myself. I definitely, what I will say that I'm so grateful that I came in with was I always I felt really gifted with intuition. And people often ask me, like, how did you feel about being adopted? And to be honest, I always felt really blessed and guided. I felt from a very young age there was an angel on my shoulder guiding me. Even like I'm a baby on the street and now I'm in a home. Like, no matter how that happened and whether the home was chaotic, I got there and somebody was guiding me. And so I've always been really grateful and I always felt like it was really special. And I also know that I came in with a lot of gifts to help me survive and transform that childhood. I'm highly intuitive. I'm very adept at reading energy. That hyper vigilance of all of those like subtle shifts of energy and everything that's happening in the room and just knowing, um, it has served me very well. As we all do. I've built my entire life around it. My career as a hairstylist was built around that. My career now in the wellness world is built around that. My friendships, my relationships. I'm very sensitive. I'm thoughtful. I'm compassionate. I'm empathic. I'm a good listener. I'm all of those things, like show up fully present with my full heart and my friendships and my relationships. And bringing that into a healing career is also really valuable because people, they feel seen, they feel
Mm,
heard, they feel like attuned. Somebody is attuning to what my frequency and they're helping me see things that I can't see. It's that deep reflection from attunement. So those are all of the gifts that I have been able to cultivate and really transform from this really complicated, challenging journey. And the biggest gift is just remembering who I am,
mm,
standing really authentically in that, and then allowing people to see me for who I am. And all of these things, they sound so simple. And like, of course, that's what we're doing. Of course, we're here to love ourselves. Of course, we're here to be authentic. Of course, we're all trying to remember who we came in as babies before all this stuff got layered on top of us. And it's the hardest thing in the world for people to do. People spend their
yes.
entire lives getting back to the point of unconditional self love, which I think is one of the highest forms of healing that we can give ourselves. It's what
Yes.
I think I'm here, these huge lessons. So, these big, easier said than done lessons, they sound
Mm,
so simple. We strive our whole lives to make these reality for us and so that we can have a better life. And whatever lifetimes we're going to next and whatever future generations that we are helping bring in. And also, it helps to heal past generations,
that's right.
ones that were before us and our lives in the past, in this lifetime.
Yeah. What are some of the practices just in the 3D practical realm that you're doing on a daily to repattern? We touched on it a little bit in the panel that you were just on here on the
Mhm.
podcast, but some of those things that you do as ritual.
Yeah. So one thing that what I think is really important is for people to have an awareness about how they channel their superpower and their gift, because everybody is intuitive and everybody channels information and everybody is so unique and so gifted.
Mhm.
So one of the ways that I channel my gifts are through writing. I
Yes.
love journaling. I have an everyday writing practice, and it means so much to me.
Mm.
It's very different than thinking. So for people who are writers or journalers, this. For people who don't, I really encourage you to even just try it for a few minutes because when we think, we're logically trying to make sense of our conscious thoughts.
Yes.
And when we write, that pen to hand connection is a direct link to our subconscious mind. And
Yes.
when I write, I will think that I'm going to write something and I will write something completely different.
Yes.
I write the truth. And I know it's the truth. And I often wonder if that's sometimes why people are afraid sometimes.
Right.
They're afraid of their own truth. And that's
Yes.
not a good or a bad thing. That's just something to notice and something to be aware of and more information to have. So it's like the
Yes.
more information that we can have about ourselves and the way that we operate in the world starts to give you a deeper look into your own pattern. So I would say number one is writing. I
Yes.
really enjoy that as a daily ritual. I really love to sit in silence or quiet. I'm going to call that meditation. And I'm also going to be very honest. Sometimes it's not just still meditation where I'm not moving with my eyes closed. Sometimes it is, and it feels amazing. Other times it might be going outside and it's in nature. You know, the
Yes.
sacred geometry in nature, just looking at a tree or looking at a flower or feeling your feet on the grass or the wind on your face, that moment of presence and stillness is enough to start to bring you back into your body. And
Yes.
so meditation can look like many different things. Uh, Components I think that work for me with a meditation is stillness. It is silence, and it can be with your eyes closed. Maybe it's with your eyes open, and maybe you light a candle to bring you back to that present moment, and you just watch the flame. You
Mhm.
know, I always set a timer. So I choose the amount of time. Is it 5 minutes? Is it 10 minutes? And if you're new to it, don't be overly ambitious. Just choose what works for you. Uh, it could also be just looking at a flower, you know, setting your timer for 5 minutes and looking at the beauty of a flower. That sacred geometry brings us back into rhythm with our own frequency. And
And roses in particular, yes, because energetically they have that high frequency.
I love roses. Roses are my favorite flower. They are so beautiful. Look, you have beautiful roses there. Those are gorgeous. Just imagining looking at the rose and just allowing that beautiful flower, that's a meditation.
Yeah.
So there are lots of different ways we can be still. So I would say give yourself a timer, be still, be silent, put your feet on the ground, maybe light a candle. Maybe it's even just taking some deep breaths in and out. You know, that's enough to
Mm.
get you connected to your higher self. And then when I do have that connection to my higher self, it to me, it does feel good to go into some silent moments of meditation and, you know, think about either what is my intention for the day? How do I want to feel? And what do I need to support myself through that?
Mm.
So, you know, that's another layer. And that's a great place where the tea comes in as a portal or as a tool to support that emotional healing, to support that emotional intention, and really help you feel how you want to feel so that you can support yourself throughout the day. And
That's incredible. And yeah, you were
well,
saying you
that's
were,
why I created it
yeah.
because it's a daily touch point. So I think that there are a lot of daily touch points, whether it's a physical touch point of journaling, a physical touch point of drinking a cup of tea, a more of an emotional touch point of sitting in silence, you know, an energetic touch point of just what intention do I want to create, or a nature touch point of going outside, but having these different pillars that you can rely on to support yourself. So to me, that's what a daily ritual is all about. And once you know what those pillars are, keeping a note in your phone or putting a note on a note card, it feels really good for me when I blank. And maybe that's like when I step out in nature and take a few deep breaths. That's what I need to return to myself during the day. And then, you know, set a reminder on your phone for that. Or when I'm feeling really triggered by a work email, it feels really good for me to blank. You know, maybe it is take some breaths and just tell myself this is not a crisis. So, once you know what your daily touch points are for returning to yourself and calming your nervous system, keeping a list. And then if you need to look at it to remind yourself, this is a way for me to return myself when I'm triggered at work, or this is a great thing that happens when I get interrupted with, whatever at home when I'm trying to focus on something, having rituals that are in place so that you can just go to them and pull them out of your toolbox to learn how to regulate your nervous system.
Yes, it's so beautiful. Your story is incredible. Your energy is incredible. Just hearing you speak as a transmission is a portal. And I just wanted to highlight when you sent me the self love tea that it came with these cards. And I was just having another look before we hopped on. And I just wanted to highlight on one of these cards that it says, collaborate, which is one of my favorite things, and I think yours too, is you guys can create a custom tea or healing workshop together for your brand retreat or event. And I'm just discovering this today. Activate, design a tea activation for your specific brand or business to highlight a special occasion, team event, or launch. And then integrate, designed for practitioners, facilitators, and retailers to incorporate self-love tea into your ceremonies or events and access our distribution channel to market and resell. I mean, that is so cool. I love that. Tell me any sort of success stories that you may have had with this. Is this too new for that proof, or is there already something that you can tell me about someone who's worked with this template?
Yeah, so if you go on my Instagram, sorry, I have something stuck in my throat. If you go on my Instagram, I have two Instagrams. One is Self Love by Shannon Kim, and one is self_love tea. So on those, I have all of the in-person events I've done over the past 2 years. So you can see all of the activations and collaborations that I've done. I also have multiple facilitators and practitioners that have reached out to me that have purchased the tea and have are either selling it, have incorporated in their ceremonies, they've left testimonials. Yeah, what I found, it's so interesting because I a lot of the people that follow me and that reach out to me are facilitators and practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
And what one of the things that I was really inspired by was this is a really great way for anybody who does an in-person event, or let's say you do an online event. It's a great way to set a sacred space. And because of the self-love tea ritual, it's like create your sacred space, brew the tea, speak your affirmations directly into the water to program the tea with that frequency. And then as you drink the tea, you're infusing that frequency, that intention into your body, and you're just allowing it to go wherever it needs to go, trusting it does the work that it needs to do, lighting your body up, and then afterwards doing any reflection. So that four-part ritual in itself can be used as an add-on to anybody's wellness ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a whole practice where I can teach you how to go through that and how to go deeper into that. And it's a great way to either open a ceremony with connection or close it with reflection. And that's been a really
I
beautiful.
love it. Ugh, it's so amazing. You know, it feels like, and maybe it's just because I'm starting to do retreats more, that I'm noticing all of these retreats. And I'm sure, I mean, I guess I started going to retreats when I was a teenage, like still in maybe my early 20s, maybe. But it feels like there's an explosion, and I don't know if it's just me noticing or if this is really happening, what the percentage is, but it feels like there's an explosion of these female empowered retreats right now.
Absolutely. There definitely are. I mean, I'm in that world as well. So when I transitioned out of hair into the wellness world, I really wanted to build a platform for myself where I could incorporate a lot of bring all of the parts of who I am to working with people. And one of the ways that I wanted to do that was creativity, beauty, sharing all of the tools and not feeling boxed in by only being able to share one or two things, but really being able to encompass all of these things so that people could really connect in a way where yes, they felt held by community, they feel empowered, and they also feel like they belong and they're seen and they're heard and they're witnessed. And I really think that creating a beautiful activation or event can encompass all of those things. So it's definitely probably because we're in the wellness world, we're seeing it everywhere. But it's also informed the way that I do one-on-one sessions because I am a certified hypnotherapist. I'm a certified herbalist. I have a background in somatics as well. And, I am, teach energy tools and subconscious tools. So I'm able to bring the same things to my one-on-one sessions, which is a multidisciplinary platform where I'm not boxed in to just doing one thing. I can kind of come forward intuitively and help people incorporate all of these different modalities.
Are you a manifesting generator?
I don't know my birth date. So I have a given birth date because I was adopted. So my given birth date is November 30th. I don't know my birth date or my birth time. So I'm not really sure what I am. I tried to look through the archetype. If anybody listening to this is, this wild psychic and they would love to help me figure out my human design without knowing my birth date, please let me know.
Well, here's the thing. You're very tapped in and intuitive and psychic, right? So you
Yeah.
probably have a feeling of what feels right to you in terms of those designs. What do you feel like is your, if you, because well, and we're all everything anyway.
Yeah, we're all everything. That's how I feel with all the things that I definitely felt manifester, generator, projector. I also had a little bit of the hermit where I can be incredibly social
Yes.
and really extroverted for a very short period of time. And then I really like to retreat because the way that
Same.
gather my energy and come back to myself is being by myself. So I'll have
Yep.
like spurts of being out and then spurts of being in, and I really gather my energy in silence. And so yeah, I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to figure it out. We're just going and
Well,
think about not knowing.
it sounds great. I mean, I complete the hermit. I have the hermit in my line, the 2-5. Um, and then caves. You might be caves
Hmm.
for your environment. It sounds like because I don't know. That's what I am, and the hermit and the cave and the retreating. And anyway, so much fun. All of that stuff, though, I take lightly because, like I said, I think we're all everything and we're all one anyway.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I love retreats as you do too. I love community as you do too, and I love also being in my own energy because as empaths, highly intuitive, hypervigilant women that we are, it's really important to be in our own energy, be in nature, not have other influences around us. One thing that I'm just hyper aware of right now from doing these retreats is the integration and coming out of one of those really potent rituals of ceremony. Everyone's hearts are open, we're all bonding, we're all connecting, we're all shedding our masks. And we feel so seen, we feel so known and loved. We just had this retreat with your self love tea. It was an incredible, heightened experience. And then you come out, and everyone experiences that really bumpy landing and transition. And for me as the leader of the group, I'm like, where are my people? Like it feels very similar to growing up as an actor, having these heightened, experiences, and then all of a sudden it's over and you move on and you're like in the void.
Mm.
So what I was thinking is how beautiful that you do this one-on-one work or that we can do this one-on-one work with the tools that you've just given us and with the self-love tea in those void moments, those moments of between the creation and the next creation, you know? How do we care for ourselves and parent ourselves through these moments of transition from what feels like family to family, you know?
Mhm.
I find those transitions to be really tender because of how I grew up. Felt very chaotic from one house to the next house to that, back and forth, not knowing what the schedule was and different rules in each household and all of this. Transitions are very tender, and maybe for a lot of people. But I'm just thinking about a tea that would be for those transitional moments, for those moments where, and every moment is transitional to be honest, but like those moments where we want to carry ourselves from one big transformational experience to the next.
Yeah. I mean, I really think of it also as creating safety for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so having a tool to integrate that safety and that transition, because often transitions are scary. And it's because it's the unknown and we don't know what to expect and are we going to be safe? And so for me, so much of it comes down, and I've talked to so many women, and one of the number one things that I hear come up for women is feeling safe in their body,
Mm,
having the ability to regulate their nervous system so that they can feel safe in their body. I hear almost every single woman say it. And it's not just a woman thing. It's men, it's women, it's people in general, because we've all had so many experiences as children, whether it's pre-verbal energetically or throughout those other deep programming years until you're like, 8, 9, 10, of just not feeling safe in our bodies.
mm,
And what happens is that, that window closes of when your parents or your primary caregivers are going to have the opportunity to make you feel safe in your body. And once that window closes, around the young age of 2, 3, 4, all those programming years, it starts to become up to us to, reparent ourselves, to make ourselves feel safe in our body, to give ourselves the messages that we didn't receive that we really needed to hear. And I also have a lot of deep compassion and empathy. It's very sad for the things that get lost in childhood sometimes, the things that we didn't hear, the things that our inner child didn't feel safe, growing up or didn't get what they needed. And also recognizing that as an adult, it's my job to give that to myself. And that's why all of this work is so important to me, because I want to feel safe in my body. And I really want to help other people have that experience too. So
yeah.
something as simple as a cup of tea, a cup of self-love tea, drinking it, just remembering who you are, giving yourself that love you need, putting it in your body. It's more than just a tea. You're giving yourself a tool to feel safe. It's a way to return to yourself. It's a physical reminder that I am safe and that I can take care of myself. A journaling practice is another way to integrate this wisdom that you learn when you go to a retreat, when you expand your nervous system. These different practices are ways that we can enhance that expansion and keep it and feel safe within that expansion, so that the next time we expand, we're able to keep it. And it's a
Yes.
bigger process of, how much are we willing to allow, how much goodness and how long, because we all grew up with speed limits or safety bumps around, we felt really big and bright and authentic in our energy. And then somebody said, you're being too loud. Be
That's
quiet.
right.
Don't
That's
say that.
right.
Don't talk like that. And then all of a sudden we get, programmed with these little seeds of like, oh, the message I receive when I hear that as a child is I'm being my biggest, brightest, authentic, most beautiful self. And I'm receiving the message that that is wrong. That is bad. I can't do that. I need to dim my light to make other people feel good so that I can be safe.
Yeah, that's right.
And, now we're just trying to uncover all of that. We're trying to remember our light, brighten ourselves out, and remember, what is that biggest capacity that we're willing to allow for ourselves, feel our full selves.
Yeah.
And it's a daily practice.
Yeah.
I've been doing it my whole life and I'm still uncovering because those patterns, those neural pathways, they're so deep. And it's
Yeah.
to uncover one, don't worry, there's going to be more work to do because there's another one right underneath it. But it
That's
might
right.
wearing a little bit of a different disguise. It might be in a little bit of a different outfit and it might be showing up in a little teeny bit of a different way, but it still has the same flavor.
That's why I like the work that we do, this self-evolution work, this human revolution work, is because it gives you the opportunity to fast track your evolution when you're helping others transform.
Mhm.
Is like my stepdad very wisely said when I was reflecting about the last retreat, he said, well, you can't host a transformative retreat without being transformed. And
Mm.
I was like, oh, yeah, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this is such a, like I said, such a meditative practice talking with you. I do want to be sacred about our time. And I want to say to the people listening, no accident, no mistake, no coincidence that you've listened to Shannon today, that you've tuned into this particular frequency and vibration of message. This is for you if you're here, especially if you're still here at the end of this conversation. This was for you, your soul. So take this as medicine. Ask Shannon on Instagram any questions you have for her. And just like we were talking about, just like Shannon was saying, this is a daily practice. So, as I always say, keep expanding your capacity one breath at a time to feel good. You are so loved. We are so here for you. However, we can resource you with all of the gifts here. And thank you so much for listening. I'll let you, Shannon, if you have any last words you want to share, because I know I just kind of closed us out, but I want to give you an opportunity to close out anything you want to as well.
Yes, I would love. So at the beginning of the podcast, I was kind of talking about a little bit of a story with my dad and how we kind of bookended each other's lives. And I just wanted to close that up because it's really beautiful and I'll tell you why. So, I was saying in the beginning of my life, he was really there for me. And then through our entire life, we had a very tumultuous, difficult relationship, but there was always love there, but it was difficult, very
Yeah.
misunderstood. And at the end of his life, I really felt like I was able to be there for him and really help him kind of move on to, the next phase of
You
consciousness.
death dueled him?
In some ways, not completely, but there was a moment. We had maybe, a few moments, but I feel like in that few moments, it really kind of wrapped up the purpose of our life together.
Wow.
So it's ironic because he was really there in that moment for the beginning of my life. And I really felt like we had a few moments at the end of his life that really showed me the deeper purpose of our entire relationship. And that gave me so much healing and so much forgiveness. And I really feel like that's what so much of this self-love work is about, is that when you start to see the higher perspective of why certain relationships are happening or why this, event is happening to you, for you, with you, again, however it is you feel about it. Once you start to see that deeper awareness and that higher perspective, you start to see the gifts inside of that. And when that softness happens, that opening, that forgiveness, that's when you really get a deep experience of healing in a new way. And it's just been so impactful for my life to look back and have that higher perspective of forgiveness and be like, I understand why that happened. I see how those threads are connected. I see how, because of all of those challenges, I not only did I come in with these gifts, but I've been able to hone them throughout my life and now share them with other people. And that was given to me through this really rocky avenue, but shown to me through forgiveness and connecting all of the dots.
Yeah, that's powerful. And that brings so much hope to people who
Yeah.
are anticipating those moments because
Mhm.
we all are going to get there.
Yes. So a lot of hope and inspiration. And, thank you so much for having me, Siri. It's been so beautiful to be with you today. And I really appreciate this beautiful conversation.
Thank you. You're so lovely. And you just emanate that compassion and self-love and meditative energy. And it's just beautiful to be in your aura and to hear from you and to hear your story. And thank you for being so vulnerable and so authentic. It's really not only refreshing, but it's healing. It's healing to hear people's origins and their stories and their heartbreak and their healing and their journey and their mission and their purpose, like, and how it all connects. Like you said, the dots, how they connect. It's really gorgeous. It's like the movie of your life. We got to just watch it. Thank you.
The trailer.
You're
Yes.
like, that's just the highlight reel.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this has been just so amazing, and I appreciate you and the work you're doing. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right, guys, we'll see you soon. Have a beautiful rest of your day.